You have to get out there in your community. We are siloed in our lives by our phones. We're siloed by our computers. We're siloed because we're afraid of the other, whatever that other is. And I think that finding community is the most critical step I think anyone can do to give themselves some hope every day.
Welcome to I Share Hope, the podcast where world leaders share their real stories of hope and how you can use actionable hope to start changing your life today. And now, here's your host, Chris Williams.
How's that?
Yeah, there.
Great.
Yeah, now there you are. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Beth. It's Beth Steinberg, right?
That is me.
So your Skype profile says "waiting for winter." Is it not winter there?
Well, you know, it's Israel. It's the Middle East. It's not exactly winter.
Although
we had a really cold week last week where I actually had to wear gloves and a hat and the whole shebang. Jerusalem's mountainous, so it is actually cold. I mean, if you're on the coastline, a day like today in Tel Aviv where it's sunny and lovely, you could be sitting by the beach, you know, having a beer and enjoying yourself.
Really?
You might not be in the water.
Yeah.
Like the water would be cold, but
you can sit in the sunshine and enjoy it.
Totally.
Nice.
I don't know. What's the weather today? Like probably in the high 50s here. So that means it's in the 60s there.
Yeah. So you're a New Yorker though, right?
I am a New Yorker.
So, I mean, it's nothing compared to New York winters though. I mean,
no, but you know, when I say waiting for snow, one of my big problems is the lack of skiing. You know, when we moved here, I knew I was giving up two very big things: the New York City subway.
Yeah,
that's something that I really love, and I was giving up New York, but I love the subway. And I was giving up, ski. Well, no, I wasn't giving up skiing, but I couldn't like get in my car after a big snowstorm and like drive, you know, a couple of hours. And you can go skiing in New York State. So that's a little bit depressing, but I can go skiing at the Hermon, which is a really crazy mountain all the way up in Israel's north, where like you're kind of on the Syrian border. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And, my sister, who's a journalist, wrote many years ago in a small clip in Skiing Magazine, or one of those skiing magazines. She was like, Israelis ski like they drive, like cell phone. Well, this was back when you would still like hold your cell phone or like cigarette and,
There's flying down the hill. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a cultural experience. It's not so much, you don't go for the conditions, you go for the experience.
Yeah, that's great. That's fun. Hey, I love your setting. I don't know what's out your window, but it looks like trees and kind of a forest.
It is my garden. I thought about this, actually. There used to be my little chair.
Love it. It's beautiful out there.
Thank you. It is a little piece of green.
And you're a sideways book stacker. I like that too.
Well, so that's my cookbook collection, which is much culled at this point. Like I had more, but nowadays, I don't look at my cookbooks quite as much as I look online for
I know.
inspiration.
You just pick up your phone. Yeah. I like sideways book stacking. I'm a sideways book stacker. And there's two kinds of.
I think you see them well.
That's what I think. Right. Whoever started stacking them like up and down, they don't write them that way. Yeah, I'm with you.
I know. It's just wrong. And also because cookbooks themselves are things of beauty often that you just want to peruse, whether or not you ever cook from them. Who cares about cooking from them?
Yeah.
It's more about having fun with them.
I love it.
Wait, where are you located? Where am I speaking to you?
Memphis, Tennessee.
Got it. Memphis, Tennessee. As a New Yorker, that's just so scary. That's like the South. What do we know?
I know. It's a really different world, I'm sure. And my wife loves the city, New York, and Brooklyn. She loves it. She goes up there whenever she gets a chance. Takes our kids up there, and she just loves it. I love the quiet country. I get to take kids on adventures in the woods. She likes to take them to the city.
The truth is I feel like I live in a very suburban lifestyle now. I mean, I might live in Jerusalem, Israel's largest city, but like compared to, big city living, it's much tamer.
No
but it's funny. I just want to let you know, just to sort of share, I was born south of the Mason-Dixon line. So,
okay.
In case that makes you feel a little better.
We have a little in common, just a little bit in common. Yeah. All right. Well, Beth, here's what we're doing. We have this survey and we're asking 1,000 people around the world from all genres of life what they think and believe and how they act about hope. And so you've left New York, you've moved to Israel full time. You have a school that's a very open school. Anybody, any faith, any background, anybody who wants to can come to that school. Is it particularly?
But not a school. Not a school.
Okay.
If I could just correct
you,
I apologize.
please do.
So we run after-school programs, actually.
Gotcha.
We've done a variety of things over the years. Our aim is to answer where there isn't, which usually if you're a kid with a disability in particular, that might mean that you lack after-school programs, be it right after school or evening programs for young people, or most importantly, and especially for families and for families, is what about vacation time? So we started with camps, and we run 2 big camps a year. One that is Passover time before the holiday starts. It's a very long vacation from school. And even though you have to clean your house for Passover, you don't really want your kids around for, so long before the holiday. And then August, we run a 3-week camp for little more than 100 campers for 3 weeks. So those are that's like, meaning we don't do school. Our aim is to actually support the life after school, because social life, having friends, feeling like you're part of a community is particularly important for every kid. Let alone if you're a kid with a disability. It becomes more complicated.
So that's a gap, a big gap there for kids with disabilities, just not a place to go hang out?
I think it's a gap everywhere, meaning there might be after-school services. It depends on where you live. In the U.S., and I know this as a former New Yorker, it depends on your state, your county, what's provided, what isn't provided. Are you in a poorer county, a more well-to-do county? What are your local support services? So when we got here, I asked 3 other parents, I said, what do you do during the summer? And they said, oh, it's a catastrophe. And I said, well, in New York, quite frankly, it felt a little bit like a catastrophe also. And that was how we started with our first camp program. And from there, we grew as we began to assess what were the needs we wanted to fill. And in particular, if I could just say one other thing, the population we serve is a population that tends to fall between the cracks. Meaning if you're a kid with a more significant disability, chances are you receive more services. If you're a kid with a less significant disability, we should still invest in your present and your future. But we tend not to. We say, oh, you don't need us as much. Now, can that kid go to your local community center and sign up for a basketball session or play soccer with everybody else? No, they may or may not, and so then they don't have a chance to build friendships after school the way everyone else wants to. And then once you get to junior high school, even if you're in an inclusion setting in your local school system, are your people calling you and saying, hey, coming out with us, we're all going for pizza? Maybe yes, maybe not.
Probably not, though.
So right. So that's our aim, is to, I would say on the one hand, solve the problem of loneliness, but I don't even want to put it in a negative connotation. We want to answer where there's need and make every kid, we were just talking about this today, that we're a people-forward organization. What can we do to move your life forward and give you hope?
Oh, that's
well,
great.
I don't want to, but I want to be careful with hope, because I think sometimes we use inspiration too easily in the world of disabilities. So meaning to say, I want to give you hope. Well, no, not really. I just want you to have the same rights as anybody else has to live their life. That may give you hope down the road.
Right.
But my aim is not to do it because it's a good deed, but because everyone should have the same
It's the right thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that. And I think I read in your bio that you're not really focused on a particular religious set in your clientele. It's fairly open. Which is that hard to do in your area? Everything I see on the news, there's a lot of division there,
There's a lot of division here. It's a complicated country, and yet it's a great country, and I think that disability is an interesting place that brings people together. I'm a parent. I might be a parent from a religious home, but I'm really looking for an answer for my kid. Gee, I might consider that program, even though normally I would prefer a more religious setting, or any number of things that I might choose if my kid didn't have a disability. So yes, we bring in kids from both religious backgrounds as well as secular backgrounds. We're open to the Arab community. I would say, in truth, it's been an area that we've wanted to serve in more, but haven't served a ton in, only because, again, small organization, limited infrastructure. In order for me to convince Arab families that I can serve them and that their kid can come with, we greet them with pleasure, the kid will be safe, happy, content, make friends, all those things. I have to develop the infrastructure to support that, whether it be an Arabic-speaking social worker, or so far we have one participant who joined the program about 1.5 years ago. We didn't discuss it. We didn't analyze it. We just said hi. And actually the best story I can say is that he came into the program and one of the staffers said, "What's your name?" "Abraham." And he said, "No, Ibrahim." And the staffer said, "Oh," I mean, there was no way the counselor didn't know at that moment.
Yeah.
Ibrahim, Arab kid. Okay, whatever. Like, great. Glad to meet you. My name is X. And
Let's get going. Yeah, that's good.
But you know, it's so as I say, it's something we would love to build on. I mean, I've been in touch also with the local. There's a big expatriate community in Jerusalem. Many of them Christians who come to work and do good things in the city. I've always let people know that we really will welcome anyone. It's a Hebrew-speaking program. Sometimes that's an issue because people who come in to do different kinds of work, oftentimes their kids go to the international school. They don't always learn the language, which doesn't mean we can't accommodate them, but they have to be open to that experience of having their kid in a Hebrew-speaking environment. But we mean what we say. You know, it's just a matter of always reaching and finding our partners where someone will say, oh, okay, I can recommend a kid to you. Sure, that sounds great.
I love it. That's really cool. So when did you start in Jerusalem? When did you leave the U.S. and head over there? And then we'll get to our questions.
2006 we moved. I was the last remaining a member of my immediate family to move to Israel. That's kind of a crazy part. That's a crazy story.
That is. Wow.
So, you know, I'm the daughter of a rabbi. My father was a rabbi in the conservative movement.
Wow.
And he dreamed of living in Israel. That was just his dream. And from the pulpit, he talked about Israel all the time.
Yeah.
He talked about many good things. Israel figured large. And I have an older brother and sister who moved here in the mid-'80s. And then my parents retired in the early 90s. And then my younger sister went. I was like kind of left in New York. I mean, I'd always thought about living here.
Yeah.
But for many different reasons, it wasn't yet our time.
Yeah.
And then in 2005, my younger sister got married and we came home from the wedding and we looked at each other. We were like, okay, like enough of this. Let's just try it.
Yeah.
You know, and what's the worst case scenario? We would come back. You know, nowadays people move around.
Sure,
you know,
it's easy.
Yeah. So we just took it as an experiment and we've been here since the summer of 2006.
Almost 10 years.
Congratulations. That is amazing too.
That's
awesome.
And
you know, again, thanks to Skype, thanks to forget Skype, like WhatsApp and Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, any number of devices for staying in touch. The distance is a distance, but I don't feel it so much.
I love that. I'm glad you're there. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. Let me ask you these questions. So we're asking these 5 questions. This is all about you. It's not about me. I'm not here to tell my story. I want to hear your story and what you believe about this stuff and how you do it. So question 1, what is your favorite quote about hope or your definition of hope?
Yeah, I was thinking about that one. I don't know if I have a hope quote. I think my definition of hope would be that which makes a person feel stronger and feel supported. You know, when we have hope, we feel good. You know, if you wake up in the morning and you feel hopeful even just about your day, you have a smile on your face. You have a sense of your future feels rosy, whether you're, you know, 5 or 105.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that because I was thinking about this, you know, I think that would be my definition of hope is that which can, you know, give us pleasure and make us feel good about our futures and our lives in the community.
That's awesome. Good definition. So play off of that definition and answer question 2. Who's shared the most hope with you in your life? Who's given you that kind of hope?
It's very interesting. You know, when my youngest, who has disabilities, was born, his name is Akiva. He's named after a famous rabbi.
That's a beautiful name.
And
Akiva. I like that a lot. I've never heard that name. You can keep going.
Derivation from the name. Like I would say it's. I'm trying to think of like how to best translate it. It has to do with the heel, which is also related to the name. You know, I'll look it up. I'll look it up and I'll give you a better translation.
Akiva. It feels good when you say it.
It's got a good sound. Well, he was a really interesting guy.
Yeah.
So maybe he's my person who gave me hope because that's how I named my son. We didn't know that Akiva had Down syndrome when I was pregnant. He's my 3rd, and he's now 18. And when he was born, I will say I have 3 boys. So, okay, here I am pregnant with my 3rd, and I'm thinking, well, it could be a girl. I could always surprise everyone and have a girl, even though deep down I knew it was probably another boy. And I had some notions of names, but my husband and I are the kinds of people who don't really like naming the baby until we look at him or her.
Yeah,
him,
got to see who it is.
Like, right, like, I don't know, what's your name, right? And I had other names in my mind. And when he was born and we knew he had Down syndrome, so we had a week to decide because his circumcision was going to happen on the 8th day, which meant that we had some work to do. And we already knew within those early few days that there was a question of whether he had Down syndrome or not. And it was pretty immediately evident, right? So it was suddenly clear to me in a flash of light that he had to be named after this famous rabbi. And as the story is told, he was an illiterate shepherd until about the age of 40. When he decided, this Rabbi Akiva, that he needed to go and learn, he had to learn how to read, which I imagine in biblical times is not as it's not as if everybody went off and read or studied, who had opportunities.
Yeah, right.
And he pretty much stuck himself into, again, this is how the story is told. He put himself into a group of little children, and he was going to learn the skills that little children were being told. And from there, he went on to become, this very famous, very, very respected, important rabbi in Jewish tradition. And I felt it really deep in my gut that this was the name we had to name him. And, and the other 2 children are named for, I'm sorry, I have to they're named for dead relatives, meaning that's what you do when you're a Jew. You name for and people that we love. They're named for my husband's father and mother, who unfortunately both died young. But suddenly I felt this kid, he was going to be a freebie, and we were going to take the name that we needed maybe to give us hope, right? We named him Akiva.
Interesting.
We named him Akiva, and his middle name is Joshua. And Joshua also in certainly biblical tradition, he's the guy who is unafraid to enter the promised land. Moses is a little nervous,
right? And
Joshua, he's the next. He represents the next generation.
Sure.
So those were names that we needed to arm Akiva with, I guess, although that sounds a little bit militant. But I wanted to give him names of strength and I guess names of inspiration and hope.
Yeah, I don't take that as militant. I take that as pursuing life, and sometimes you need to be really, really ready for that one.
No, we weren't ready. We weren't ready at all.
But the name bolstered you. The stories behind those names, That's
a good way of putting it. It bolstered us. I think so.
Cool. All right. Question 3, take us back to a time, tell the story. What happened in life or is happening still that you're really having to use the hope that you've got to conquer and get through? You seem like you've got it all rocking and rolling. You're from New York. You live in this little tiny suburb called Jerusalem now, and you're doing things that mean a lot to a lot of people. But I mean, has it been hard?
It's been a really hard year. My sister died in May, my older sister, and
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I mean, I'm not trying to while we knew that her health was fragile and we knew this day might come, it was brutally hard and terrible. And yet, one thing that's been so good, one thing that was good throughout her illness, I mean, that's a longer story, and also that was good even in these last bunch of months. So we went from my sister's, okay, so here it all comes together. Now I'm putting it together.
You take your time.
So she died in May, and 6 weeks later, her eldest child was married to an absolutely wonderful, wonderful woman.
Wow.
And then 4 months after that, or 5 months after that, the next child got married. It just sort of happened that way, that they were both engaged and on their way to. And my sister knew, thankfully, both couples as couples, and
that's great.
Was happy for them and celebrated them as couples. Of course, didn't get to celebrate that real moment as a parent of marrying off your kid. And it was the first wedding since it really came so soon after her death. It was the most cathartic experience I've ever had in my entire life. We came together, we celebrated, we danced like crazy till 3 o'clock in the morning. This huge group of us, which the wedding hall said they've never seen this many people stay till that late. It's we couldn't stop. We had to move ourselves to that next place. I mean, it was almost
you were healing right then.
It was amazing. It was amazing. And I think that it gave us hope that we would, we always knew we would make it through. I knew we would make it through her death. I knew that her children, her husband, I knew we would all survive this. It's kind of the way we're all about. It was her honesty about what she thought could happen, what might be ahead. It was the way she faced everything in life. But it was interesting how the wedding provided us with such a healthy moment of hope and happiness, right? A couple gets married. It's such a hopeful moment.
Sure.
It's the future.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I would say, that really helped get us through.
That's interesting. There's so many pieces to that story. You've got a lot of community, and you're living on a legacy of a sister who's a forward thinker anyway, it sounds like. And then to have an event like that where it's not just we sit around, we have a lot of food and a lot of relatives and friends coming over, but actually within 6 weeks you're having a party. I mean, wow, what a great shift to be able to throw some serious healing energy towards
seismic.
Yeah.
And it was also crazy, like in the way of Jewish life cycle events, Jews are kind of Jews are very fascinating in well, hold on one second, in the way things are often played out. So for example, we had, I don't know, like 50, 60 people coming in from the US for this wedding, which happened in the middle, in the middle of the country near where my sister lives.
Sure.
And so they're arriving, which means like, well, we got to like plan this celebration. And we also had to mark her death because there were people who hadn't seen her since they had last seen her, whatever that would have been. And of course, since this had happened. And I remember we planned it. So hold on, I got to give you a little more information. In Israel, Memorial Day, which is taken quite seriously here, is the day before Israel Independence Day. So you go from this day, which is filled with many ceremonies all around the country, marking people who gave their life to defend the country.
Right.
And then towards the end of Memorial Day, there's these, you have to prepare now for this transition into the happy Independence Day, right?
Yeah.
Now we can be happy.
Yeah.
And very often there are different communities, be it religious or secular, will have special celebrations that they'll put on for this and they'll do a transition sort of ceremony into the happy. Wow. So we had, everyone arrived. There was a little shower event for the women, but okay. Then the next day, we had we put her stone up at the cemetery, and people came to the cemetery. Okay. And we really marked her passing in that way. And we, especially with those who hadn't been there, and people who hadn't been at the funeral could also share or speak. So we had this really intensely sad moment, and then from there we shifted into a happy Sabbath celebration of the couple, which is traditional thing to do. Absolutely. With like a huge gathering in synagogue, and of course lots of good food to eat. Yeah. And Sabbath meals together. And it was a really like huge event with a little bit of rest, and then the next day was the wedding. And I thought, even that, which was exhausting, was also so great. It was crazy and overwhelming, but great. And again, I felt it really offered us these combination of different life cycle moments to derive some hope from something really crappy.
To truly honor the past and her memory and what she stood for, and also to really look forward to what she was hoping for. I mean, honestly, she sounds like a person who was hoping for that future. That's awesome. I've never heard a story like that where it turns around that well.
We're still, listen, it's not.
Yeah, it's not over.
Exactly. Right, right. It's not over, and it shouldn't be over. Yeah. But I think that for all those people who think that's a very hard thing to experience, those combination of events, and yet, I mean, it's not like I'm looking to do it again, but it really had its worth. It had its learning. It had its experience.
There's a book in that somewhere.
I'll have to think about that.
Give it a year. All right, question 4. How are you sharing hope today? You've told us a little bit about the after-school programs and what you're doing there in Jerusalem, but what do you do in your daily life, in your everyday world, to share hope with those people around you?
I think, really my life is very tied up in the work and the organization that I run. It's a very invigorating experience stewarding an idea. I don't even think my my colleague and I, my co-founder and I, Miriam, we had no idea what we were getting into. We started with an idea, and that idea grew. And then suddenly we had to fundraise for that idea, which meant you had to suddenly ask your friends or your family for money beyond that now. I mean, it's much bigger than that. Well, I would not be here today if not for, shall we say, the hope and inspiration that my friends and family give us by supporting the project every day. I really do derive a tremendous amount of hope on a regular basis. And I would say I share it. I'm just thinking about all these thoughts. And that I share hope via the program really every day, because, every day we think about how can we inspire the world. I know that sounds like a big word, the world, but how can we inspire each other to truly be open to difference, to be less fearful of difference, to be a more welcoming community. These are very big challenges, but they're challenges that I really make, I think that are part of my life on a day in, day out basis. And I think that because people know we're very committed to what we do, I have conversations with people every day, how's Shutaf and what are you doing and what's happening? And whether it's by email or in person or out in the street or I'm at the pool, and I feel that I've become a representative for disability issues. It's not something I intended to do, but through that, I think I think we do share with people on a regular basis this feeling of building a better future for each other, because it isn't really just about that person with the disability. It's us. If we are able to open our hearts better, we will reap the benefits. And I think that's something I really think about every day. I don't, do I share it with someone every day? It happens a lot now. I have to say, I really feel like it's out there on a very regular basis for me with people. And
I can't imagine that it wouldn't be that way with what you're doing. I think you've said a lot in this conversation, how much hope you're deriving from the process too. And I think that's really neat, because a lot of people seem focused on the people they're sharing with, but they don't internalize how much it gives back to them. But it really is better to give than to receive. I mean, however you want to say it, there's lots of quotes out there about giving is really going to pay you back more than it pays the other person.
People say to us, if somebody wants to come and volunteer at the program, they'll say, do you need volunteers? And we always say, we don't need volunteers. We want volunteers. We love volunteers. We honor volunteers. But come to be part of this process and this experience. Like, I get it. We volunteer. It makes us feel good. That's good. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But I want more than that. And I want people to think about it in a more nuanced fashion. And, I have an 18-year-old with very significant developmental challenges. It's not, we're navigating questions related to adulthood and 21 school is up, which is like I just think poorly thought out by school services. But not that a person should be in school forever. They should be allowed to go off and live their adult life. What does it mean for him to self-determine, for him to have a happy life, a life that he will feel good about and we can feel good about? But maybe, and sometimes it's really tough, my two older children are older, and my husband and I sometimes feel we're going through this life transition of what it means to really navigate these issues on our own. It's our job to think about it with him.
Yeah.
But maybe the work has really helped us in that regard. It's helped me. I mean, I got a lot more information than I would have had if I wasn't doing this.
Very, very true.
So,
great point. Way to be active. All right, question 5. The simple ABC.
Oh my God, what's 5? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
I'm looking. I look to the side every so often.
Well, the simple ABC steps, the 1, 2, 3s that you can tell me and the people who are hearing this conversation on my side of the fence. How do we start growing as a person of hope or sharing hope today? Like, when we hang up the phone call, what do I do next?
I think we all have to get out there. You have to get out there in your community. We are siloed in our lives by our phones, right? We're siloed by our computers. We're siloed because we're afraid of the other, whatever that other is. And I think that finding community is the most critical step I think anyone can do to give themselves some hope every day. Whatever that means.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Finding community. Man, that's a good point. And so many people, particularly if you're in what you feel is a hopeless situation, we often isolate and think, oh, nobody's going to understand, or they're going to feel too heavy or too burdened if I share this or whatever. But you have to find community, find somebody who's willing to listen a little bit and you're willing to listen to them a little bit, and or playing a game of cards or skateboarding or cooking together or whatever it is you do, and start hanging out and sharing life.
It's hard.
It's hard.
You know, and I think in the daily grind of whatever your daily grind is, it can be very hard to give yourself hope. And you can feel very hopeless because of that. And I don't want to feel that I'm being simplistic about the very real challenges people can have. You know, if you're struggling to put food on the table, it could be hard to have hope on where do I have time to look for community? I have to, you know, I have to provide in the most basic of senses. So, you know, I know that that's a complicated thing. I do think that feeling like you're not alone can maybe just be one finding a way to connect with someone or something might just give you a little bit of hope, even if you're still struggling. The struggle, your everyday life struggles do not necessarily go away. They might feel a little bit better, and you might have good days and bad days.
Good point. Awesome points. All right, how do we follow you? How do we keep up with where you're at? Social media, websites, what do you got?
I am really easy to find. I don't know if I'm really easy to find, but I'm out there. I mean, I'm on Facebook, both individually as Beth Steinberg, and I love to meet people. I write on a fairly regular basis about disability and parenting issues on a news site called The Times of Israel, on our Shutaf website, which is campshutaf.org. We'd love for people to connect with us and certainly write to us and let us know you'd like to receive our newsletters and just find out like what we do. And then you can come visit us in Israel. So, you know.
Even better. There you go.
Oh, and Twitter also. And I mean, anywhere you can look on social media, you'll generally find me.
So Beth Steinberg is BethSteinberg.
Correct.
All the social media handles out there for that. And Shutaf is spelled...
Certainly on Twitter and on Facebook. I kind of feel like on Instagram, I go a little bit under the radar. So
we won't point you out.
All right.
Shutaf is spelled Shutaf, and that is the after-school care program that we're talking about. If you want to Google those.
After school and camps.
Yeah, and we're going to put all those links, everything on isharehope.com. Under the interviews tab, look for Beth's name, Beth Steinberg, and we'll make sure that all the links pointing to her, where you can find her, how you can follow her story, all that sort of thing is sitting there, because we want to make sure you get in touch. Also, we have our following is on Chris Williams HQ, and so Chris Williams HQ is the handle for any social media outlet, and we'll make sure we're shouting out to Beth. And if you have anything relating to this story or this conversation, I'd love to hear it. Particularly if you've got, I mean, Beth talked about some serious things, and having a child with a challenge like hers has, it's a tough thing as a parent. I don't happen to have a kid like that. We have close friends who do, and it's a whole different world that they live in versus what we live in. So reach out to Beth. She's got a lot going on. She's got a lot she can point you to.
But wait, Chris, it's the same world. Yes, your worlds might be a little bit different in terms of your everyday life and the challenges you cope with your kids, but hey, we really are all part of the same world.
That's a good point.
So I'm just saying that to you, not to correct, but to remind us we really are all in this together, you know?
That's a
they
great
may
point.
be having a good day and you could be having a lousy day.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks for the reminder. All right, I have just a couple of random questions. When you tell all your friends in New York City, hey guys, we're moving to Jerusalem. I know some are probably like, oh great, your family's there, and some are like, what? You love the subway? What are you doing?
Really, honestly, so many people knew we had dickered over this for years. Like, nobody was really surprised.
They're like, come on, make a decision. Get over it.
I mean, one friend of mine told me about a year or so after I moved, she said, you know, I knew you were really happy, and I was happy for you to finally do this. She said, but I was really sad for myself, but you didn't want to hear that because you were too busy being excited. So I definitely felt like that was like, I was so glad she told me that because I needed to be respectful of the challenge of moving 6,000 miles away. I travel a lot. That helps. I do see people. I do my best.
Yeah, good for you. You're
But
awesome,
it's true.
Beth.
Not everyone thought. Thank you.
I'm so impressed.
It's so nice to meet you. You got to come to Israel. Bring the kids.
We've talked about it. I would love to see that. Oh, there's so much history there. So much. Just world history, religious history. This stuff is amazing. Yeah.
Totally.
Thank you for your
You'll
time.
be in touch.
Enjoy your day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've just listened to I Share Hope. If you're ready to make a change, head to our website at isharehope.com and claim your free copy of the top 10 actions of hope from world leaders to use hope in your own life. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
I know. It's a really different world, I'm sure. And my wife loves the city, New York, and Brooklyn. She loves it. She goes up there whenever she gets a chance. Takes our kids up there. She just loves it. I love the quiet country. I get to take kids on adventures in the woods. She likes to take them to the city.
The truth is I feel like I live in a very suburban lifestyle now. I mean, I might live in Jerusalem, Israel's largest city, but like compared to, big city living, it's much tamer.
Okay.
But it's funny. I just want to let you know, just to sort of share, I was born south of the Mason-Dixon line. So,
Okay.
in case that makes you feel a little better.
We have a little in common, just a little bit in common. Yeah. All right. Well, Beth, here's what we're doing. We have this survey, and we're asking 1,000 people around the world from all genres of life what they think and believe and how they act about hope. And so you've left New York, you've moved to Israel full time. You
have to get out there in your community. We are siloed in our lives by our phones. We're siloed by our computers. We're siloed because we're afraid of the other, whatever that other is. And I think that finding community is the most critical step I think anyone can do to give themselves some hope every day.
Welcome to I Share Hope, the podcast where world leaders share their real stories of hope and how you can use actionable hope to start changing your life today. And now, here's your host, Chris Williams.
How's that?
Yeah, there.
Great.
Yeah, now there you are. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Beth. It's Beth Steinberg, right?
That is me.
So your Skype profile says "waiting for winter." Is it not winter there?
What about this? Actually, there used to be my little
I
chair.
love it. It's beautiful out there.
Thank you. It is a little piece of green.
And you're a sideways book stacker. I like that too.
Well, so that's my cookbook collection, which is much culled at this point. Like I had more, but nowadays, I don't look at my cookbooks quite as much as I look online for inspiration.
You just pick up your phone. Yeah. I like sideways book stacking. I'm a sideways book stacker. And there's two kinds of.
I think you see them well.
That's what I think. Right. Whoever started stacking them like up and down, they don't write them that way. Yeah, I'm with you.
I know. It's just wrong. And also because cookbooks themselves are things of beauty often that you just want to peruse. Whether or not you ever cook from them. Who cares about cooking from them?
Yeah.
It's more about having fun with them.
I love it.
Wait, where are you located? Where am I speaking to you?
Memphis, Tennessee.
Got it. Memphis, Tennessee. As a New Yorker, that's just so scary. That's like the South. What do we know? I was giving up New York, but I love the subway. And I was giving up, skiing. Well, no, I wasn't giving up skiing, but I couldn't get in my car after a big snowstorm and drive, a couple of hours and you can go skiing in New York State. So that's a little bit depressing, but I can go skiing at the Hermon, which is a really crazy mountain all the way up in Israel's north where you're kind of on the Syrian border. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And, my sister, who's a journalist, wrote many years ago in a small clip in Skiing Magazine, or one of those skiing magazines. She was like, Israelis ski like they drive, like cell phone. Well, this was back when you would still hold your cell phone or cigarette, and,
There's flying down the hill. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a cultural experience. It's not so much, you don't go for the conditions, you go for the experience.
Yeah, that's great. That's fun. Hey, I love your setting. I don't know what's out your window, but it looks like trees and kind of a forest.
It is my garden. I thought, it's Israel. It's the Middle East. It's not exactly winter. Although we had a really cold week last week where I actually had to wear gloves and a hat and the whole shebang. Jerusalem's mountainous, so it is actually cold. I mean, if you're on the coastline, a day like today in Tel Aviv, where it's sunny and lovely,
Yeah.
you could be sitting by the beach, having a beer and enjoying yourself.
Really?
You might not be in the water.
Yeah.
Like the water would be cold, but
But you can sit in the sunshine and enjoy it.
totally.
Nice.
I don't know. What's the weather today? Like probably in the high 50s
Wow.
here. So that means it's in the 60s there.
Yeah. So you're a New Yorker, though, right?
I am in New York.
So, I mean, it's nothing compared to New York winters, though. I mean,
No, but when I say waiting for snow, one of my big problems is the lack of skiing. When we moved here, I knew I was giving up two very big things: the New York City subway.
yeah.
That's something that I really love.